Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I am the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Maria Flynn. She is a speaker, founder, and advisor. Once a CEO in the biotech industry, she's earlier on in her speaking journey. So I'm really keen on finding out what she thinks of the speaking industry so far, and if what she's doing is similar to what more experienced speakers are doing. We'll see about that, I suppose. So welcome to Teach the Geek Interviews, Maria.
Thank you for having me.
So before you became a speaker, what type of work did you do?
So I've been an entrepreneur for about 25 years. I started off as an engineer. The geeks are my tribe. And then I went into the entrepreneurial journey from startup to selling the company. And then I've been working with entrepreneurs since then. So my speaking journey starts probably about 20 years ago, speaking to middle school girls about going into STEM fields. So I would do that when people would invite me in, because I thought that was part of my give back. And then in the last few years, it's been tied with the book that I published earlier this year to get the message out to help entrepreneurs with their endeavors.
Out of curiosity, with those girls that you spoke to 20 years ago, do you know how many of them actually went into STEM?
I have not tracked it. I know there's about 900 girls that I've spoken with, a couple of large, 300-person groups that Science Pioneers is a group here in town that they had brought them together, Girl Scout troops. But I added it up a couple of years ago when I keynoted an event that they call it the STEMmies. They gave awards to women in STEM. So I kind of reflected on the journey of what are the messages that I would tell these girls.
Okay, that's pretty cool. When it comes to what you actually speak about as a speaker, how did you come to that topic?
Well, and it was really tied into the work I was doing with entrepreneurs where I was telling the same stories. And that's when I thought, I think I need to write this down and put this in a book. And a lot of times when you have a book, speaking goes hand in hand with that. And really, the speaking helped me flesh out where should this book go so I could test it out. I went to Global Entrepreneurship Week and some different places where I could find my audience and present what I intended to do with the book and then get feedback. This was working, maybe tweak this. And then I got asked to do a few keynotes, and I've just been growing the speaking since then.
There's a lot of speakers out there that have a book or who have a book as well. Why would you suggest that speakers write a book?
Well, it is a great process to really solidify your thought leadership. So what is it that you want to put out in the world? And a lot of times we do this because we want to help others. We want to help our younger self with the lessons that we learned. Can we learn it faster? And so that's a great way to really put it down on paper and scrub it and test it and perfect it. And a lot of times speaking, you're also iterating also, but really the speaking, the book help you in that journey.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think also when it comes to books, it helps to show yourself as a leader. At least people get that perception, even if the book is crap. If you have a book, people just automatically think this person knows what they're talking about, or at least well enough that they put a book together, and then they get the book, and well, you'll see whether they know whether you're talking whether they know what they're talking about after read the book, I suppose. But that first impressions matter, I suppose.
Yes.
uh, when I was thinking of the next question I had, oh yeah, when it comes to being a speaker, I think a lot of people when they think about professional speakers, they think about keynotes. What type of services do you offer as a speaker?
I've done keynotes, I've done workshops. Really, it's the same content that I will modify to how much introspection or group work that you want to do. So that's been great. And then besides the book, Make Opportunity Happen, um, uh, things around STEM and leadership have been areas people have invited me in.
But people who are listening and watching this conversation, Maria, and they really want to put themselves out there as a speaker, what do they need to have in place beforehand?
Well, what they want to talk about in the presentation, and that's one of the way you don't have to go write a full book to do that, but really that soul searching of what is the most value that you can add and what does the audience want, and then testing it out. And that's why starting in a free environment is low risk because you can test things out. A lot of times people will start with groups of 20 or 30. And that's what I was doing back then with the Girl Scout troops. But really you evolve into what are the things that you'd like to talk about and what is the audience resonating with. They come back and give you feedback or come back later and say that really impacted me. So knowing what you want to put out in the world, what lessons you've learned, what has helped you that you can help, and then really knowing what audience that fits in.
You know, while you were talking, it reminded me of the book again. And this is probably a question I should have asked, but how do you position your book to get speaking engagements if you do that at all?
Well, I mean, the great thing about a book is you are then the person that wrote the book on fill in the blank. So I wrote the book on make opportunity happen. And when I think about what is unique about me and what I bring into the world, it is really making opportunity happen. So that dovetails nice and as you mentioned, gives you credibility, but also defines. It's a pretty noisy world. There are a lot of speakers out there. This really defines where you fit and if your audience needs that.
How do you go about marketing yourself as a speaker?
So a lot of it is word of mouth. Of you start and you get a speaking gig and you get 2 or 3 other speaking gigs from that. If it doesn't start to spin off, then you probably need to go back and retool what you're putting out in the world. And is this really what the audience needs? But organizations, I just did one 2 weeks ago for BioKansas. It's a statewide organization of bioscience companies. There are people who are the matchmakers that connect the people who need speakers with the speakers. So letting them know who you are. I send the book out to people and say, next time you're thinking about a speaker, consider me. So a lot of just really awareness of what your message is. Definitely want to have a landing page on your website of what you speak on. If you're a paid speaker, list your fees so they know you're a paid speaker. That changing from free to paid is kind of an interesting evolution.
Yeah, for sure. How are you finding that transition from free to paid?
Well, and the more offers that you get, then the more selective that you can be. That's one of the great things about a book, because sometimes if they say they don't have a budget for speaking fees, they may have a budget for buying books. So it gives you another lever of how to get compensated for your time and more negotiation flexibility.
Indeed. I think, at least from the people that I've spoken to so far, when they were starting out, a whole lot of the engagements they got, it was from them reaching out to various places and speaking for those places if they thought that those places, well, if those places wanted them for. But when it comes to reaching out to when it comes to reaching out to various places, you have, well, there's two people involved. You certainly, there's you reaching out and then them responding to your outreach. And in so many instances, you may not hear back from that initial outreach. So you have to follow up with people. Have you ever been in that position? And how do you handle following up with others?
I've definitely done a lot of follow-up from a business development perspective and selling different aspects of companies that I've been in. From a speaking perspective, I focus more of my energy on the awareness, posting on LinkedIn, because a lot of times there are these matchmaker type people that when people need a speaker, they'll go ask, who have you seen? Who would be a good speaker? And so having awareness with these people that you are a go-to person to speak has helped. And I think from a follow-up perspective, if I knew for sure that I wanted to be on that stage, then I would get into a follow-up rhythm. But right now it's more of the awareness so that the stages can find me.
Okay. And so when it comes to the strategies that you use for these stages to find you, you said you use I believe you said you post. So what types of things do you post?
So you want to post the speaking opportunities that you have had, pictures of you on stage, feedback, getting testimonials from the people that have hired you or brought you in. Those are all great things to put out in the world. And then they keep seeing that you are a person that does this. And so then when the question comes up or the time they need to fill an event or someone asks them who would be good, then you're top of mind.
Okay, so you're posting online with the expectation or the hope that the people who can potentially hire you see these posts and get in touch with you.
Right.
Okay, understood. All right. For the people who are starting out in their speaking journeys, they may have done some free engagements. You mentioned the transition from free to paid, and that's, I'm sure, something that many are interested in doing. How do you go about pricing your services?
That's a great question. And it's really asking around. Now, when you sign these contracts, they will often say this is confidential, but you can get information from friends that are speaking and different industry reports that more generalized, so maybe not for a specific event, but where do they start and then how do they increase? And really, it's you have to start somewhere. And so often we start free, so we're getting experienced, and then when you get your first paid one, you just do your best of and there are other ways to get paid besides by check, and that's where exposure, if it's to an audience where you think that you might get more paid engagements from there, if it's a distributional list of people that you want access to, if it's marketing or others. So really thinking creatively in those, when you're going from the free to compensated, what are the things you can get? Are they videoing it and you can get the video? And then once you start to get paid, then repeatedly, then you can start to increase your fee as you go along. There are different elements if you need to travel for it or how much time, or if it's a topic that you need to put more work in, that's not your standard presentation. There are different levers that you can increase those fees.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. When people think about professional speaking, obviously you think about getting paid to speak by the organizer, but there certainly are other ways to get paid. And you mentioned some great ones, getting testimonials, getting video, because putting yourself out there as a professional speaker, the expectation is that you have a video reel of yourself speaking. So if you're able to get that for free, well, essentially for free, you give a free presentation, or at least that's the exchange. You give the presentation, you get the video. Well, now you got something to put in your video reel, and you didn't have to hire your own videographer to go get that footage. So that's great. And then also, I really do like the idea of getting testimonials too. You can put that on your website. You can put it on your LinkedIn profile. So now people can see the video, people can see these testimonials and think, okay, this person is somebody that we should bring in. And it's not as if they know that those initial engagements were free. They have no clue. All they know is that they saw you speak and you did a good enough job that they want you to speak for their organization. So yeah, I think those are great points to make, and really important for people who are aspiring to be professional speakers to keep in mind.
Right, for sure.
100%. Maria, there are a lot of speaker programs out there that target aspiring speakers, promising them to help them develop their speaking businesses. If you have any experience with such programs, what are your thoughts on them, and what should people expect from them?
So I was part of a program this year that was very helpful for me. It's called Speaking Your Brand. Carol Cox and Diane Diaz are out of Florida, and they have a program that really helped me because my book has a lot of pieces into it, and how do I extract the presentation was what I was working on, and they really helped me through that process. And it was a community of people that you could share ideas. There are some great podcasts to get content, but to really have a guide, sometimes we need it, and it's the right time. And that was a great investment that I feel very good about. So that's my experience. I see some other ones that are higher dollar, and really kind of gauging when's the right time. And I have other things that I do in my career, so it's not all speaking, but I have my eye on a couple others. But I can say without a doubt, Speaking Your Brand was very positive for me.
For the ones that you have an eye on, what would you hope to get out of those programs if you were to engage in them?
Well, and that's really what I'm trying to assess is what's the transformation I, as a speaker, am going to have? How much better am I going to be at the end of that? How much more confidence will I have and the ability to negotiate fees? And then at some stage, you can put support around you, whether it's a rep or being part of a speakers bureau, but you have to have a lot of reps in to get to those stages. So really, it's how much would it transform me as a speaker?
Indeed. For the people that I've spoken to before that became professional speakers, many of them talk about the National Speakers Association and becoming members of that, and the fact that NSA also has chapters around the country, so it very well might be a chapter in your area. They're a big fan of developing friendships with speakers. And they say that you can learn so much from just other speakers, learning just about the business. You can ask them various questions, and many of them won't charge you anything. Well, you don't charge your friends.
Right.
So if you get those type of speaker friends, they'll answer your questions. They hold conferences twice a year, and people go to them. In fact, I went to one a couple years ago, and I thought it was quite useful. And just developing those relationships with people who are where you want to be, and just getting that type of education and just that learning from them as well. I think it's been really helpful. But when I think about those types of relationships too, I often counsel about them being one-sided. So you'll have the aspiring speaker and then the more experienced speaker, and the aspiring speaker wants the information from the experienced speaker, but that aspiring speaker is not thinking about what they can contribute to that experienced speaker. So it's all there's only information traveling one way, and the relationship seems rather one-sided. And I just wouldn't want those experienced people to ever be in a position where they're thinking, man, I'm just providing all this information to this one person, but they ain't doing nothing for me. So there's no reciprocity there. So if for anyone who's listening or watching were to develop these types of relationships with more experienced speakers, always keep in mind what you could do for them as well.
Indeed. And you can refer them. So what I see a lot is, oh, I can't make that one, but I know somebody who would fit in. And it doesn't mean the less experienced person can't do that for the more experienced person too. And actually, you get a lot of good feelings by helping others. So as long as you're not taking too much of their time and you go back to them and say, hey, you gave me this advice and it really worked. And you're always asking, how can I help you? I think there is a benefit the more experienced person gets, as long as you're not too much time.
Indeed. Yeah, it's just always think about how you can give as opposed to what you can take. Because,
For sure.
people want to take it's give and take. It's not just take.
Yes,
That ain't cool. For
exactly.
sure. 100%. For the people who are watching or listening to our conversation, Maria, I think a lot of them they get to a point where they have their speaking topic. They've put out various marketing collateral to put themselves out there as a speaker. Perhaps they've done some free engagements, but they're doing all of this as a side hustle. They have their regular 9 to 5 job, and they may have aspirations of going full time as a speaker. What do you think those types of people need to have in place before they leave their jobs to become full-time speakers?
Well, they need the comfort level that they've made enough progress that it's the right time to make that leap of faith. And that's why I think it's great to be doing it on the side. And a lot of it, you put it out in the world, but you also need the hustle of making sure it's in everybody's hands that can use it, and the follow-up, and the really promoting yourself. So if it was me and I was going to make that transition and start to turn off other aspects of income, I would want to know that I have enough on the calendar, and how I'm going to multiply that to keep that going. I think it's always great to have different revenue streams, and I think speaking is such a wonderful aspect and addition to other things. Sometimes if you turn off those other things, you lose your ability to be the knowledge leader in some of those things. So when I look at the speakers that I really admire, they are still building insights with clients or research or other means. So if you're going to turn that off, really just have an expectation of how do you continue to stay relevant and the thought leader in your area.
That's a great point, Maria. And I agree with you, actually. The people who are just keynote speakers, what do they do to keep their skills sharp and keep them relevant? Because just because you spoke about something 10 years ago doesn't mean it's relevant today. I get the sense also that a lot of speakers, as you mentioned, do have those various revenue streams. They're speakers, they're consultants, they're coaches, they sell books, they do a bunch of things, and all those revenue streams together provides them with the lifestyle that they want. And I also get this, I also, for the people who are watching and listening and are thinking about making that jump, it's so important to know that it may take some time to get to that point where you are able to replace your salary as an employee with those various revenue streams. So it's really important to have a runway, have some money saved up, however many months of living expenses that you think that you're comfortable with. And then at least within that time, you're thinking, well, I was doing this as a side hustle when I had a job. Now I can commit all my time to figuring out what I can do to just amplify what I had already been doing. And at some point, you will get to where you want to be, but you just have to have that. Well, certainly you have to have the courage to leave that full-time job, because that's not easy to do. I mean, for the people who have done it, they can tell you you're leaving security, or every other week you got paid, or at least every other week money ended up in your bank account, and that's not going to happen anymore. So you gotta be a hunter, and you gotta kill what you eat. You're not a zoo animal anymore. You're out in the wild. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But once you're able to figure out a system to get engagements, to get clients for those other revenue streams, then you're in a much more comfortable position. So yeah, I definitely take your point of those experts staying experts in their fields while also speaking.
Great advice.
Yeah. This has been a great conversation, Maria. Thank you so much for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
Definitely on LinkedIn. I'm Maria S. Flynn. You can go to my website, makeopportunityhappen.com. We can join a weekly newsletter. There are free templates and free resources to access there. And you can check out the book on Amazon.
Excellent. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I'm the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Maria.
Thank you.